Alright lads, welcome back to another one of my War Thunder vehicle reviews. Today we're taking a look at a vehicle that I've already covered technically, but in the last update, it got quite a significant buff in my opinion. The Merkava Mark 2D is a premium tank for the Israeli tech tree, sitting at rank 6 and battle rating 9.3 for arcade, realistic and simulator. To purchase this vehicle, you will have to buy it off the Guardian store for the price of €60 or dollars. As well as the tank, you get 15 days of premium time, as well as 2,000 golden eagles. Being a premium tank, it'll only cost you 10,000 silver lines to put it in your lineup, but for the expert and ace qualifications, which are kind of important at its battle rating, it's 970,000 silver lines for the expert qualification and 2,100 golden eagles for the ace qualification. So with its recent big buff, the addition of the M413 round, basically an Israeli copy of the German DM33, is the Merkava Mark 2D now worth buying? Well, the ability to penetrate any battle rating 10.0 tank from the front certainly has helped this, but does the Merkava's reputation for being a big, slow, fairly unprotected tank kind of negate this firepower? Well, if you'd like to know the answer to that question, boys, stick around for the rest of the video. Alright lads, welcome back. The Merkava Mark 2D is powered by an engine producing 963 horsepower, but combined with the Merkava's very heavy weight, at least for this battle rating, of 63 tons, it gives the tank a rather terrible power to weight ratio of 15.3 horsepower per ton. This is basically World War II medium tank level mobility, at least medium tank power to weight ratio, sorry. Its top speeds also aren't that great. While it does have a top speed of 55 km per hour, with your rather low power to weight ratio, it is quite hard to get up to that top speed. And the reverse speed of 11 km per hour, it is actually quite slow for battle rating 9.3, especially for an Israeli vehicle which is kind of NATO leaning. Especially considering Israel's fought literally every eastern leaning country surrounding it. But enough geopolitics for one video. But yeah, the reverse speed of 11 km per hour, it's not really good enough to get you out of some slightly precarious situations, shall we say. And again, with a power to weight ratio being so slow, or so low, sorry, it does leave the tank feeling very sloppy to drive, especially when you're trying to maneuver in tight spaces. So if you get any of the more urban maps in War Thunder, God forbid you get Sweden, then this tank can be quite a suffer festival. It just isn't fast enough to pop out, take a shot, and then reverse behind cover, especially considering this thing is the same battle rating as the XM1. But moving on to the survivability, something which the Merkavas are famous for in real life, at least when it comes to chemical munitions. But anyway, if we take a look at these two images, we can see that we have a frontally mounted engine. This will soak up some damage, mainly from again chemical rounds. Kinetic energy penetrators are still likely to go straight through this. We also have a driver in the hull of the vehicle to the left of the engine, as well as a gunner, commander and loader located in the turret. It's also worth noting that all of the Merkava's ammunition is stored in armoured boxes, located just behind the loader. It is worth noting though that just because your ammunition is protected, it doesn't mean you are completely invulnerable to ammunition detonations. You just have slightly more protection from spalling. A direct from a kinetic energy penetrator is still likely to detonate the ammunition. But ladies and gentlemen, what about the actual armoured protection itself? At a range of 200 meters against the 3BM42 Mango round fired by the T72 AV terms, our lower frontal plate provides around 176mm of protection. And the upper frontal plate is slightly better at 208mm of protection. It is worth noting that just because the upper frontal plate is highly angled, it isn't really likely to bounce any incoming shells. At least when it comes to the high performance kinetic energy projectiles such as APFSDS. If you do get down tier to say battle rating 8.3 and there's a vehicle firing an APC-BC round, then maybe your upper frontal plate may bounce this type of ammunition. But most of the games I've played have been up tiers to 10.0 or 9.7, where APFSDS isn't really likely to bounce. We then move up to the turret, which is a little bit of an enigma really. There's not really any sort of uniform armour anywhere, it's all different angles, but the thickest part of the tank and the most likely part to get hit is around 250mm thick. The turret of the Merkava is quite ugly to be honest, it's not really It doesn't really look good, if you know what I mean. But anyway, if you're trying to kill one of these tanks from the front, shoot it just below the turret. The top of the hull, basically, just below the turret ring. It'll go straight through and kill all the crew in the turret, killing the vehicle. But while the armor of the Merkava isn't really that good, the vehicle overall is pretty survivable in my opinion. Against many chemical rounds, the engine will eat up the damage, so against helicopters or many of the infantry fighting vehicles with ATGMs, you do stand a good chance of surviving a first hit. But we do also have smoke grenades as well as ESS, but most importantly in my opinion is the laser warning receiver, or the LWS. This is great to know when you are being laser designated by a helicopter or an infantry fighting vehicle, as well as being lanes finded, if that's a word I'm not sure, by enemy tanks. While with the latter scenario it doesn't give you enough time to actually get into cover due to the Merkava's pretty bad mobility, it is incredibly helpful when you are dealing with helicopters, as well as long range opponents if you're in a sniping battle. But anyway boys, onto the firepower. This tank is armed with a 105mm Sharia cannon, with 54 rounds of ammunition, and 6 of those ammunition being stored in the first stage ammunition rack below the loader's feet. We have a 2-plane gun stabilizer on this tank as you'd expect at 9.3, and we have 8 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of gun elevation. We also have very fast targeting speed on this tank, which is basically how fast the tank can traverse its turret. This basically allows you to snap onto targets quickly, and basically allows you to brawl if you really need to. We then move on to the reload speed, and with a stock crew this thing takes 8.7 seconds to reload, which is a very long time to be honest. But the good news is with an ace crew it drops down to 6.7 seconds, which is still quite a long time, but it is the standard for all 105mm guns in game, at least until you unlock the M1 Abrams. We then come on to the ammunition. Now our stock round is the M152 Heater Fess. It travels at 1174 meters per second and penetrates 400mm of armor. But this is a premium tank, so you won't need to use this shit. We then also have the M156, which is a Hess shell. It travels much slower at 731 meters per second and can penetrate 127mm of armor at all ranges and angles. We then also have the M416 smoke shell, again with ESS and smoke grenades. Not really that useful in my opinion at top tier. I guess you can use it to blind people, but it's a lot of effort and I'd just stick to taking APFSDS to be honest. We then also have the M111. This used to be the top round available for this tank when it was first introduced, and it was basically just a DM23 clone. And the era of DM23 being meta is kind of long gone in my opinion. It used to be the best kinetic energy projectile in the game for around 9.0, but thankfully now this tank does get the M413 shell. As I said in the introduction, this is basically a clone of the German DM33, travelling at 1455 meters per second. At a range of 1000 meters, it can penetrate 389mm of armor. Compared to the last round, the M111, we have around 50mm extra penetration at armor angled at 30 degrees, and about 50mm of penetration more against armor angled at 60 degrees. So the M413 is a very good round in my opinion, and certainly has given the Merkava a new lease of life. While the mobility is pretty average and the survivability is a little bit hit and miss, the main firepower of this tank is now very reliable indeed. A well-placed shot is pretty much guaranteed to one-hit kill anything you are facing, and really does give you a confidence that when you pull that trigger, your enemy is going to die. Playing this tank has felt very rewarding for me, because it is far from overpowered in my opinion. It's kind of just an average tank, but it's now got a good gun. If you play well, you will get a lot of kills, but you'll know that those kills come from you being a decent player, and not the fact that you are using a cancerous machine, looking at you KA50 and 2S38. But lads, should you actually buy this tank? Well, if you want to grind out the Israeli tech tree, which not many people seemingly want to do, considering it is the least played tech tree in War Thunder, you kind of don't really have a choice. It's the only rank 6 premium grinder in the Israeli tech tree at the minute, and it probably isn't going to replace anytime soon. This isn't one of those tanks that I would recommend to get just for making money or for grinding. Obviously, if you don't want to play the Israeli tech tree, then it's an obvious no. But if you do want to grind the Israeli tech tree, it is quite a good vehicle in my opinion now. The addition of the M13 has really done wonders. There are main issues with the tank. It is a little bit sluggish to drive around and the survivability is a little bit overhyped. But that firepower is just so nice now. It does only have first generation thermal imaging, but you can't really complain about that at 9.3. The one biggest downside I would say is you don't really have a great lineup at 9.3 in the Israeli tech tree. You have the Gal Batash and the Macbeth, whatever it's called. That's really all there is. It would have been nice if this thing was a little bit better and put it at a higher battle rating, where you could at least take it out in a 10.0 lineup. But if you want to grind these Rally Tech Tree, I'd highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun to play, it's not overpowered, and it does feel rewarding. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really just helped me out. If you have any requests or ways to improve the video format, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below in the comment section. Finally, I'd like to say a big thank you to the channel members: Levi Stark, Wolfie Fly, Joseph Metcalf, Thompson013, Just Someone, Dr. Bob, Daboa LX, Tans, William Tessier, and Lola Alfonsi. If you made it this far into the video, lads, leave a comment saying keep the HUD safe H.